You're listening to the Sacred Wit podcast, where no scripture or testament is off limits. I'm your host, Jasper Moradi. Last week, we completed our examination of Bartholomew Tiggle's 9 rebel sermons. Once again, to avoid confusion, I want to stress that I only focused on the text of the actual sermons themselves, and not the 800 pages of footnotes, addendums, and highly advanced algebra equations that follow them in the unexpurgated 1958 Baldwin Press edition. To do something like that is, to invite madness. Recent events which underlie my conversation with Dr. Aaron Tate from episode 49, that is to say, the idea that mythology is not something consigned to the past. Mythology is now. My story begins with the annual Hudson River Booze and Boobs cruise, which was something of a local institution. A 3-hour boat ride from the port of Albany to the city of Troy and back again. The cruise offered a buffet, a bar, and more exotic dancers than you could shake a money clip at. Ostensibly, this low-grade bacchanalia was a way for local entrepreneur Edward Fingal to raise money for the Tri-City IBS Treatment Society, or TITS for short. It was the kind of event that brought greasy philanthropists from all across the Tri-City area. It should be noted that Edward Fingal is more commonly known around these parts as Good Time Eddie Filth, and he has been running 4 local adult novelty stores since the 1970s. Good Time Eddie used to be raking in the cash, but just like every other brick-and-mortar store, he had been hit hard by the online revolution. Businessmen like him weren't prepared for a world where you can get live nude girls on your smartphone and dildos delivered by Amazon drones. Now, because of these changes, Good Time Eddie needed the Hudson River Booze and Boobs cruise to help balance the books. It was like his Christmas. Christmas with herpes. The MS Better Not had always been the vessel of choice for Good Time Eddie's oceanic adventures. It was a 3-level cruise ship 10 years past its prime, but the lower decks had tinted windows and central air to keep the sights and smells of the event from the landlubbers. As you can imagine, after each of these cruises there was a public outrage, municipal embarrassment and condoms washing up on shores for weeks. The forces of decency would rally and vow to put an end to the Hudson River Booze and Boobs cruise, but no one really thought the party would ever stop. Not when there was more than enough money for bribes after the owners, the caterers, the dancers and local mobsters had been paid off. The only people that got shut out in the end were the people left at Tits. My friend Brian Foster was there the night the party stopped forever. Now, Brian was drunk, seasick and horny. It was almost 10:30 at night, and he believed he was the only person on the open-air upper deck of the MS Better Not. It was 30 degrees, just cold enough to make him feel like he might either sober up or pass out. The party raged on beneath him. And yes, I do mean raged. The overload of booze and the boobs had made a good number of Good Time Eddie's guests aggressive and demanding. The bouncers had their hands full, and they had begun deputizing members of the ship's crew to keep what was supposed to be a nice charitable orgy from degenerating into a series of manslaughter charges. The more I heard about this little soiree, the more I had to wonder what Brian was doing there. After all, he's the night stalker, not the thong snapper. Apparently he was there because of his cousin Roy. Roy was performing DJ duties for the cruise and had a free ticket to give away. Knowing what I know about Cousin Roy, I was surprised that he hadn't auctioned it off to the highest bidder. Brian told me that he had been trying to find a comfortable place to pass out when he heard a crash. A man was staggering across the guardrail. His face, throat and gut had all been torn away. Air whistled through his ragged neck, a loosened eye rolled and jostled against an exposed cheekbone. Entrails, reeking and bloody, brimmed from his belly, slithering down to his feet. Then, something brought him down. A lean, canine shape. Brian heard the bites that killed the already dying man. The loud snaps of a powerful jaw, followed by grunts that might have been from effort or from pleasure. Brian's every muscle was locked in place, utterly terrified and fascinated at the same time. The thing chomped and swallowed while Brian ever so slowly retrieved his smartphone and snapped a few pictures. Click. A paw immersed in a shallow puddle of blood. But the paw wasn't right. It was clumped and gnarled like an old branch. Something about it made my skin crawl. Click. A long arching back, a supine torso covered with hair, but not thick with it. Its hindquarters were hunched, its shoulders were sagging, its blunt muzzle was buried deep in the torso of the dead man. Like the paw, the entirety of the creature's body was hard to look at. At one glance it brought to mind a sickly or deformed beast, and with another it made you think of a child clumsily play-acting at being an animal. Click. Closer now, zooming in. There were traces of what might be bruises or war paint along its throat. The jawline was distended and monstrous-looking. The ear was pert and seashell-like. With one eye it looked directly into the camera. Without warning, the thing loosed a long, keening howl. When it howled, Brian screamed. Brian doesn't remember running. He does, however, remember falling down the stairs and landing with a thud on the main deck. The smallest of the 7 bouncers on duty, a pair of guys named Adam and Phil, helped him to his feet. They ushered him over to a chair at an empty table and brought him a glass of water. Cousin Roy's 15 Minutes My Humps dance remix was throbbing from the speakers. No wonder no one had heard the nightmare going on upstairs. "Aren't you Roy's brother?" Adam asked. "What happened?" "Someone is dead," Brian said. "Upstairs. There's some kind of animal." That was the only description Brian dared to give. What was he supposed to tell them? That there was a monster on the loose? The bouncers went to investigate. Brian stared around the room, his gaze taking in table after table of single mothers, runaways, and other lost girls feigning interest in whatever the lonely and broken man salivating over them had to say. Suddenly, he was being manhandled to his feet and dragged up the stairs by the bouncers. They didn't look amused at all. It seemed darker now, but that might have just been the beginnings of the alcohol poisoning he had been courting all night. The Patroon Island Bridge was looming up ahead. No one was more surprised than Brian when he suddenly threw up all over the bouncer's shoes. "Oh, god damn it!" Adam hissed. "Never mind that." Phil pulled Brian over to the far railing. Of course there was no body. There was plenty of blood, but no body. "Now," Adam said, "what the hell happened up here?" As far as interrogations go, the one Brian got from the 2 bouncers wasn't all that bad. He told them what they expected to hear and insisted they had to turn the boat around and call the police. "Someone might have fallen overboard! We gotta get help!" "All that happened is someone fell and hit their head," Phil the bouncer glared. "Head wounds bleed a lot. Poor sap probably wandered back downstairs." "Well, that doesn't even make sense. Think about what—" Brian stopped talking when he felt a meaty hand on his right buttock. "Hey, that's my wallet. Mr. Fingal doesn't need the police or any other kind of trouble." Adam pocketed Brian's driver's license. "So you keep your mouth shut or we'll find you and make you sorry." "I'm already sorry." Brian snatched his wallet back. "You guys are making a big mistake." They crossed their arms in unison. Phil said, "We're professionals. We don't make mistakes." "Oh, please." Brian rolled his eyes. "This isn't Roadhouse. Can't you see we're all in danger?" "Danger? How?" Well, he self-consciously adjusted his straw fedora. "I haven't been 100% upfront with you guys." "Oh?" Phil stepped closer. "I saw something else. It attacked the guy that isn't here now." "Something else?" So Brian told them everything. The whole story, cringing with every word. When he was finished, Adam asked, "Are you saying you saw a werewolf?" "Hey now," Brian raised his hands. "I did not use the W word." "But that's what you meant, right?" Adam continued. "You're saying you saw a werewolf eat somebody." Brian snapped his fingers. "Hold on, I snapped a picture of it." Adam and Phil stared at the smartphone screen for almost a minute. Then they exchanged glances, and Adam tossed the phone into the Hudson River. "Hey!" Brian shouted. "What did you do that for?" The rules said no recording devices allowed on the boat, Phil glared. You remember that? I think we're beyond such concerns now. Brian tried to match the other man's glare, but that isn't easy when your line of sight is roughly equal to the guy's pectoral muscles. We should be worried about the werewolf. The two bouncers started laughing. Adam gave Brian a shove. Werewolf? All I saw was some naked hippie chick. Hippie chick? Yeah, you know, all hairy and shit, Phil said. Now you better stay out of trouble for the rest of the trip or you're gonna get a taser in. And with that, Brian was alone on the upper deck again. I know what you're thinking out there. A hippie chick? Did those guys really think there was a rouge flower child still on the boat? In my opinion, they probably did. When faced with the inexplicable, most people default back to their most comfortable frame of reference. Parts of Brian wanted to leave those idiot bouncers to their fate. What would happen if he grabbed a life jacket and literally jumped ship? Better a touch of hypothermia than a disemboweling. But that would mean leaving Cousin Roy and other semi-innocent people at the mercy of a creature that most likely didn't have any. He had to do something, so Brian decided to present his case to the captain of the MS Better Not. He might take the situation seriously. Brian headed up the stairs to the bridge. He ran the lie he was planning to tell in his head again and again and again, editing out any details that might arouse suspicion or laughter. He was so focused on this that he almost didn't notice when his hand came up from the railing wet and red. Oh no, he thought. Oh no. He started up the stairs again, but a little more slowly and quietly this time. There was a small fire extinguisher in a case on the wall. He grabbed it. The engines of the boat thrummed, the waves lapped and splashed against the hull. Brian could hear the sounds of laughter and pounding of the music from down below. The stars began to pale as the Patroon Island Bridge grew closer, and the flash of headlights passing across it became brighter and brighter. The door at the top of the stairs was a sliding metal affair, and it looked very secure. Too bad it was wide open. There was blood on the walls and the instrument panels. There were bits of the bridge crew smeared around the floor. A bit of the captain here, a bit of the first mate there, a bit of something unrecognizable in the corner. Brian walked into the room. He wasn't looking for survivors. He just wanted to find the radio so he could call for help. But he found the handset had been ripped out, and the controls had been smashed. There was a roar, then a flash of pain as he was thrown forward. A sharp ache bloomed up the right side of Brian's back, the kind of ache that always precedes an unhealthy amount of blood loss. Terror and adrenaline kept him on his feet. He spun around, swinging the fire extinguisher. Metal struck bone. Teeth clattered to the floor. He brought the fire extinguisher back around for another swing. Another ugly crunch of bone. The attacker, the werewolf, went down. Why does it always have to come to something like this? He wondered, but his next thought was more primal. Never mind, finish this. Grunting at the pain, he raised the fire extinguisher above his head. And that was when the MS Better Not crashed into the Patroon Island Bridge. You may know the rest. The MS Better Not struck the Patroon Island Bridge and capsized, leaving 5 dead, including the captain and bridge crew and 2 missing. The full-fledged boat rescue in the middle of the night that was made the more insane because Brian's cousin Roy decided to leave Gordon Lightfoot's The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald playing at full volume before abandoning the DJ's booth in favor of a life raft. The wound on Brian's back was a deep one. Stitches couldn't close it. They had to use surgical staples. I imagine he has an epic scar in his future. He also has a long way to the DMV to get his driver license back, since the bouncer Adam was among the dead. When I consider what happened that night, I think about Tyke the elephant. Stay with me on this, I'm going somewhere. In 1994, during a performance of the Circus International in Honolulu, Hawaii Tyke went berserk, killed her father and ran wild through the streets. 12 people were injured, and eventually Tyke was brought down in a hail of gunfire. Just think about that poor creature. Snatched away from anything remotely resembling a normal life and forced to perform for the amusement of others. When you consider all that we know, what happened was almost inevitable. Now consider that among the injured was a dancer named Zora. Investigations revealed that she was a 15-year-old illegal immigrant that had been smuggled into the country from Armenia and forced to work as a dancer and a prostitute by Edward Fingal's adult entertainment company. Also consider that despite having a broken jaw, dislocated shoulder, and shattered clavicle, Zora disappeared from the hospital shortly after her identity was uncovered and hasn't been seen since. The authorities suspect Good Times Eddie's associates had something to do with it, but I'm not so sure. Now we may never know who or what the girl named Zora was, but when you consider all that we know what happened, this was almost inevitable. Now I would like you, listeners, to keep that all in mind for next time when we examine Roulette's The Gospel according to Peter Stubb. Thank you for listening to the Sacred Wid podcast. Please don't forget to subscribe to the Sir Ayme YouTube channel for more episodes, and please check out Brian's podcast too, The Night Blogger. You can find a link to that in the description. Once again, my name is Jasper Moradi, and I hope you'll keep your wits about you.